Hello and welcome back to part 15 of Losing the Boomer Blues. They both ordered their all-time favorite spicy Mongolian beef with eggplant and wonton soup. Vince made a toast to their reunion. Clicking their glasses together, they smiled at each other and sipped their wine. When their food arrived, they both felt relaxed and ready to enjoy the best Mongolian beef in San Francisco. Over dinner, they began to catch up. Vince asked, "When did you get back in town?" "I arrived last month and was staying with my grandmother until I found a townhouse in the Sunset. My job was my number one priority when I got here, so I hadn't had enough time to myself. I've been too busy working. I was planning on giving you a call when I got settled, but something always came up. I'm constantly struggling to find enough time." "I'm glad to know that because I've been thinking of you. I got your Christmas card. It was a total surprise. Did you get mine?" "Yes, I did." It put a smile on my face. Changing the subject, he asked, "So what were you up to in Los Angeles?" "Nothing much socially, that's for sure. I was working in a large law firm that focused on environmental law. They have offices all over the United States, and of course, I kept my eyes and ears open for assignments in San Francisco. I was longing to get back to the city. So when a partner position opened in San Francisco office, I showed interest, and they transferred me. It happened so quickly I couldn't believe it." "Wow, Fran, that's great." "I'm happy to be back. I've missed you too, you know." "What have you been up to?" "Let's see. My life is pretty boring. I'm a workaholic." Fran jokingly said, "You know what they say, all work and no play." I completely understand. As you know, to make partner, I worked at least 60-hour weeks, probably for the last 5 years. Over tea and fortune cookies, they caught up a little more. Vincent's fortune read, "An exciting adventure awaits you." Fran's fortune was, "Somebody appreciates the unique you." Vince told Fran that he was the one who appreciated her, and that they needed to take off on an exciting adventure. They both thought their fortunes were spot on. After dinner, they walked down Clement and peered through the window at yesteryears. Looking into the shop, they began to recall the summer they both had worked for Grace. Vince took Fran's hand and said, "I don't think you realized back then that you knocked my socks off. Meeting you was the best thing that could have ever happened to me." "It was fate that we met that year, Vince. We were just young kids in high school. I liked you right away. I never considered myself a clumsy person, but all of a sudden, I was a klutz. I dropped a box on my foot the very first day, making you and everyone else well aware of my newfound clumsiness. From that day on, you had my back. Whenever Grace had heavy boxes to lift, you volunteered. I was looking out for you, Fran. You were so thoughtful. I still have that necklace you gave me. I love it so much. I remember it well. Grace gave me a discount. I never told you that. I thought you might think less of it." "How could I ever think less of anything you gave me, Vince? I loved everything, especially that big red penny you found in the airport parking lot on the night I left for Los Angeles. That night seems so long ago, but I still have the penny tucked away inside my wallet. Everything changed when you left. We never got the chance to take our relationship to the next level. It was my fault. I was committed to becoming successful and lost you in the process. We were both focused on our careers. I had dreams too, and LA offered me opportunities to make them a reality. I get it, Fran, but you could have pursued environmental law in San Francisco? Was it because I was spending too much time at work and less with you? Not really. We weren't in a committed relationship. We were pursuing our careers. I do believe we were driven to succeed career-wise, and that caused us to drift apart. We needed space to concentrate on our futures. I agree with you, yet after so many years without you, it's made me realize I could never find anyone on earth like you. Ah, that's sweet, Vince. Why dwell on the past? Let's concentrate on the present and see where this reunion takes us. I'd like that. Chapter 8, June 2017. Lucy and Fred visit Skip. It was the beginning of June, and Lucy and Fred were making preparations for their trip to New York City. A week before their departure, Skip had phoned them with good news. Marilyn was pregnant and expecting their third grandchild. They were elated because this time it was a girl. Since Lucy and Fred had already planned their visit and were beginning to come to terms with bringing the boys back with them to San Francisco for the summer, Skip and Marilyn decided to spend their summer searching for a bigger home to accommodate their growing family. All too soon, the day of Fred and Lucy's departure arrived. The Uber driver picked them up in the morning and took them to the airport. They braved the long lines and waited patiently until it was time to board their flight. Within an hour, Lucy and Fred were on the aircraft. They were greeted by a friendly flight attendant who welcomed them on board and showed them to their seats. She opened the overhead compartment, showing Fred where to put their carry-on bags, while Lucy settled into the window seat. She liked to daydream and look out the window, so this was perfect. After they were seated, Lucy turned to Fred and said, "Thank God you got your aisle seat, although I would have preferred you next to me." Instantly, Fred replied, "My flying phobia has improved, but I still need to be able to move around. The middle seat makes me too claustrophobic." "Well, I wonder who will be stuck in the middle." "No idea, but I feel sorry for that person with you and me on either side." At that moment, an attractive young man appeared, and after squeezing his duffel bag into the overhead compartment, he excused himself, and Fred stood so he could take the middle seat. He thanked Fred and quickly shoved his backpack under the seat in front of him, put in his AirPods, and pulled out his laptop. He was polite but stayed focused on his computer. Halfway through the flight, Lucy needed to use the restroom. She stood and excused herself to the young man. He smiled, and both he and Fred stood so she could exit. Fred's opportunity to stretch his legs had arrived. When Lucy returned, Fred's seat was vacant, and the young man was busy on his computer. He rose so she could resume her seat. More than 30 minutes had gone by, and Fred hadn't returned to his seat. There was laughter coming from the front of the plane. Lucy looked up and saw the top of Fred's head and heard his voice. Ever sociable, Fred had found the musician Lucy had pointed out to him at pre-boarding. He looked to be about the same age as Fred and carried a Martin travel guitar on his back. The two of them had struck up a conversation, and the man had invited Fred to take the vacant aisle seat next to him. The musician started strumming the guitar. He began singing Masters of War. He took Fred by surprise because almost instantly he found himself singing along. They took turns playing the instrument and sharing songs and stories from back in the day when they played in a rock and roll band. They both felt as though they knew each other for years. 2 hours later, the pilot turned on the fasten seatbelt light. Fred shook the friendly musician's hand, and they exchanged email addresses before he returned to his assigned